Zrizut means diligence. No, it's okay. Zrizut means diligence. Diligence is when one does things at a good pace. It's the opposite of laziness. It's when he gets things done at the right time. He does not push it off. It is one of the most important midot, one of the most important characteristics of all. In the entire series that we'll be talking about, midat zrizut is a significant midah because without it, it will be very difficult to achieve anything. In dealing with this important task called tikkun hamidot, in working on one's midot, one's personality, and one's character, it is imperative to have zrizut. Without zrizut, one will not have the desire or the interest to even think about or to working hard on himself. So the rabbis consider this midah a very important ma'alah for Torah and mitzvot. You will see this midah discussed at length in the Sefer Mesilat Yesharim. You can also read about it in Sefer Orchot Tzadikim. It is one of the big midot. And in speaking about zrizut, it's important to point out at the very start that we're not talking about pzizut. Pzizut is something done quickly, but done impulsively. And when something is done impulsively, it means it was done without too much thought. So that's not too good either. When we want to do something quickly, we want to do it with thought. We just don't want to do it with too much hesitation. We don't want to push it off, but to do something without any thought whatsoever is actually dangerous. We're not even talking about rushing something, because rushing into something is also not good. Even driving fast is not good. Some things that are done fast are actually dangerous and not good for you. When it comes to rendering judgment, rabbis tell us it requires metinut, it requires deliberation, not zrizut. Just the opposite. You have to be very careful, you have to analyze things, you have to think it out before you make a decision. So, in dealing with this midah, it's important to keep in mind that we're dealing with an individual who has clarity, he already knows the value of something, he has no doubts, no questions about it, but he perhaps wants to push it off, wants to delay it, wants to think about it more and more and more. And sometimes if it's a good thing, if it's a mitzvah, you shouldn't push it off, you shouldn't give too much thought to it, because the excitement that someone may have at a given time may disappear and never come back. The Chassidut and the Kabbalah speak about these excitements that occasionally come to a person. You may think of it as a good mood, but in reality it is the neshama being awakened milamala, from upstairs from heaven. There are times that they awaken the neshama and he feels good about doing something, he feels excited about doing it, he's motivated, and that motivation may not last a long time. And that is why it's very, very important to catch the moment and do something. As Yaakov did as soon as he woke up from his dream, and he said, "Man nara hamakom hazeh." How great is this place? I didn't know that this is the window of heaven, the gate of heaven actually. And he immediately set out to do something. He made a promise. And he decided to do something immediately because of his excitement, because of his observation. And in life, we don't always have these free moments to think about what we're doing or to reflect about our past doings. And that is why the Almighty has to stop us on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's like the highway patrol stopping you and getting into a conversation with you, not necessarily about your infraction. So where are you going this morning? About a totally different conversation. He said, well, I'm going to San Francisco. No, you're not. You're going to Tijuana. You're on the wrong freeway. So the stop that he caused us, even though it was meant for speeding for something else, sometimes is obviously for our benefit, to get us to think that perhaps we're on the wrong freeway. But thank goodness we can make a U-turn. We can get off the off-ramp and get on the right freeway. So that from time to time we are awakened. we are sent messages from above in various ways. And if one is zariz, and one is aware of what's going on with him, and doesn't push off things, doesn't discount them, he has a better chance of doing something about it. So that's the midah that we'll be talking about, zirizut, diligence, doing things properly, on time, not pushing them off, but with thought, in other words, with clarity. The rabbis in different words tell us that when it comes to the service of Hashem, you actually have to learn from the animals. Az kanamer gibor kari kal kanesher ratz katzvi lasot retzon avicha shebashamayim. You have to be ferocious like a leopard. You have to be swift like an eagle, quick as a deer, to do the will of Hashem. In other words, adopt these characteristics from these animals, but use them for good things. Use them for the service of Hashem. Swift like an eagle or quick like a deer is really what zirizut is all about. Easygoing. It shouldn't come hard to you. In talking about swiftness, we're talking about the opposite of something being a tircha, a burden, a difficulty, something that you just want to get it over with. It should be easy for you. It should be something light for you. I know a fast is not easy. To fast, whether it's Yom Kippur or this coming Sunday, Asara B'Tevet, it's not fast. Nobody's asked to be swift in a fast. Yeah, obviously we're talking about a positive commandment. We're talking about doing things that may be difficult to us because of pressures, because of time constraints and so forth. And nevertheless, the rabbis tell us, don't take it so hard, be swift and be quick about it. Adapt these characteristics from these animals. When do you have to be ferocious? It says, Az kanamer. You sometimes have to use chutzpah. You sometimes have to be ferocious. In other words, you have to be courageous in the face of people making fun of you, perhaps, in the face of certain hardships. So these characteristics are useful in the right circumstances. The rabbis therefore tell us in the Torah you will come across the word tzav. Tzav, command, from the word mitzvah, tzav. The rabbis tell us, en tzav ela lashon ziruz, zirizut. Even though the Kohanim know what is expected of them to do, the priests had to be zrizim. They always had to be quick and diligent not to make any mistake. Wrong move and the korban is no good, and the service is pasul. It's not just a matter of an expense, it's a matter of a big waste and possible an avon, a sin. So tzav is a lashon ziruz that the Kohanim had to be reminded to do things properly and diligently, pay attention to detail. So this tzav of lashon ziruzut does not only apply to Kohanim, it applies to every one of us in the avodat of Hashem, that we have to be alert. We have to be cognizant of what we're doing. This comes into play very, very much when you go to the supermarket. Cognizant of what? Cognizant of whether the product that you're buying is kasher or not. Don't take it for granted. You know that it's just it's just juice. No. Well, maybe it was bottled with things that are not kosher. Maybe there's something there that you missed. Maybe there's something that you don't know what it is. Not everybody's a pharmacist, right? Not everybody knows all the ingredients, what they are. So be careful. Do your homework. If you have a question, ask the people who are familiar with these products, with the supervision, and find out whether this is something that you can have or not. So tzav is a lashon ziruz, means when it comes to the service of Hashem, to the performance of mitzvot, you have to be alert, you have to be aware of what you're doing in order for whatever it is that you're doing for it to come out just right. Sometimes you have to be mezarez others, you have to alert others in order that they should not make a mistake. Tzav is not only for yourself, it's also for others, that they may not be paying as much attention to what they're doing something out of routine, and because of that, very easily they can make a mistake. But if one continuously learns, for example, Ilchot Shabbat, that there's so many details, he reviews them constantly, then there's less a chance to make a mistake. So by reviewing his learning, by reviewing halachot, you're being zahir and zariz. You're being both cautious and you're being diligent. Zahir, which is another midah, which we won't speak about, but it is really a midah that comes even before zerizut. as I will explain soon, in order to be zariz, you have to be cautious. Cautious means you have to have a certain degree of awareness. And whenever you are performing a mitzvah, it would help to know what this mitzvah is all about, the details of the mitzvah. And the only way you can do that is by learning the halachot. And that is why every year we review the halachot of Sukkah, we review the halachot of Yom Kippur, of Tisha B'Av, whatever it is. We don't assume that we remember from memory. First of all, it's a mitzvah to learn the halachot, it's a mitzvah to review. Plus, we forget. And there may be something new that we didn't pick up last time. All of that is called zrizut. To be on, in English they say to be on top of it. To be on top of it means to have full control as much as possible, to be aware, not to make a mistake. In speaking about zehirut or zerizut, there's a small difference. Zehirut, caution has to do with mitzvot lo ta'aseh. Mitzvot lo ta'aseh means the negative commandments. Negative meaning don't do this, don't do that. So when it comes to the midah of zehirut, that applies more to lo ta'aseh. Be cautious, be careful, not to make any mistakes. Whereas zerizut, you will see, applies much more to mitzvot aseh, to positive commandments. Zerizut is also necessary in order to deal with the bad midot. Bad midot, bad characteristics, for example, kas, anger, and jealousy, hatred. All of these midot require zerizut. If a person is not zariz, then he'll lose control of himself. If he's zariz, that means he has some degree of caution, awareness, right? He's careful, he's aware. He won't come as easily to make this mistake. These mistakes can cost a person his job. You yelled at your boss. Yeah, even though he did something to you, if you don't know how to control yourself, if you're not zahir, zariz, you can easily lose it. You can spoil an otherwise good relationship at home, husband and wife, who have a potentially good marriage, but because of the kas or because of some other problem, he or she loses themselves. So when a person gets used to being zariz, zahir, it is easier for him to be a master of himself instead of a slave. And throughout the series of midot, this is the main theme. Are you the master or the slave? A slave meaning, are you the slave of the Yetzer Hara? Are you in this prison that you can't get out of? Or do you know how to get out? Open the door and get out and not stay in. In other words, that's what life is all about. Are you a true master of your destiny or not? And when it comes to midot, that is the one area where we really have free will. The performance of mitzvot plus the working on our midot. The other areas, as I've said many, many times, we have barely any control. How much money we make, what job we'll have, the kind of kids we will have, the neighbors, you can't choose them. You just can't choose these things. You fill out a resume, you're not guaranteed a job. You get a job, you don't know what kind of co-workers you will have. There's so many unknowns. There's no control. That's part of your goral, your destiny, your mazal. But when it comes to working on midot, what kind of a life will you have? A loving relationship, a quiet home, or there's always stress, there's always anger, there's always a balagan, as we say in Hebrew, a mess. That's up to the two of you, the husband and wife, what you make of it. And that, of course, will depend on the midot of the people, if they have good midot or not. Now, obviously, depending on the homes that they were brought up in, if they were brought up in a broken home, they have a difficult challenge, they have a much more difficult job to work on themselves. If they come from a good home where their parents were angels, it's easier for them. No doubt about it. I'm not saying no, it's true. Education, chinuch at home, all of this can make a big difference. It's a starting point. The kids have it a little easier. The friends you have, all of this have a tremendous hashpa'ah on how you will deal with your life. Nevertheless, let's not forget we always have free will, and everybody is capable of taking control of his destiny as far as midot, regardless of his situation. Nobody should blame the psychologist. Nobody should blame anybody. Blame just yourself, because a person can take hold of the reins of this horse, which is his physical body, by being a good captain. The captain or the rider is the neshama. And the neshama has the proper guidance, which comes from Torah, right? Which comes from learning Musar. He's able to take the reins and be a good driver. If you don't want to learn how to drive, or if you want to be a drunk driver, then you're going to get into trouble, right? So you don't want to drive when you're drunk, right? Neither do you want to ride, without knowing where you're going. Just like nobody gets on a bus without knowing where he's going. You want to know what you're going to do, right? Have a sense of purpose, a mission, and then hopefully one will realize, well, wait a minute, this is getting me out of the way. I want to head there, and if I continue this way, it's not going to get me where I'm going. Most people go under the chuppah to succeed. I hope. I don't know of anybody going to the chuppah to get divorced, right? You go to the chuppah to stay married, right? But unfortunately, I don't want to say names, but somebody did tell me that there is a photographer in town that has many, many unfinished albums for which he got a deposit, wedding albums, but that's it. Only deposit, because either they never got to the wedding, or the wedding lasted a week or two. So without telling anybody who I'm talking about here, there are unfortunately, certain groups of people who do not understand the purpose of life, the purpose of marriage, and get themselves into trouble. That is the importance of midot. Midot, as I've said in the very beginning of the introduction, is really the essence of life, because that will determine whether one succeeds or fails more than anything else. How much money you made does not determine your success. A person can make a lot of money but still be a failure. A failure as a husband, a failure as a father, a failure as a brother, as a brother-in-law, as a friend. That's a failure, a big failure. The money does not determine his success. Even though the goyim look at it as a success, we know the truth, that it's pure mazal. It has nothing to do with his college education, nothing to do with his IQ. It's pure mazal. The real success is what the Navi says. Ali ta'el hadam bechokhmato, chacham bechokhmato, ashir beosho, kim askel beyado ati. One should never take pride in his wealth or in his wisdom, but how much he knows me, Hashem says. How much he has come to know me, how close he has gotten to me, how he's behaved. That's what you can be proud of. And the only time we will know that is when we eulogize somebody. We see him going through his life, we saw his ups and downs, and at the time we're eulogizing him, we can say, yes, this man was a mensch, he was a good man. Even though he was not a very successful businessman, he treated his wife like a good man. Whatever he had, he gave her the shirt off his back. You've heard of that term? Some people are very, very nice, and they'll do anything for someone else before they do for themselves. So that's what we call being unselfish. Unselfishness is a beautiful midah, but you know what it takes to be unselfish? It takes a tremendous amount of work. Nobody's born unselfish. It takes a tremendous amount of work. That's the work in the midot. One who, for example, is going through a very difficult time, a painful time. It could be an illness. It could be pain of some kind. He needs his rizut for that too. He needs to be zariz, he needs to be diligent or aware of what he's going through. That this is a kaparat avonot, perhaps an atonement from heaven. He can't lose himself. Otherwise he'll start complaining about God. So zrizut helps in many, many ways. And one has to remember the following, very important point. In the same way that the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, attempts to ambush us, to commit a wrong, to commit something evil, and one has to escape that trap. In the same way, there is another Yetzer Hara called the Yetzer Hara of Mañana. We'll do it tomorrow. Don't think the Yetzer Hara is this bad guy only out to ambush you to commit a big sin. Yes, he does that too. Whether it's to steal, to lie, to cheat, to yell, to curse. Yeah, the Yetzer Hara tries to put you in those situations, and it's very hard to resist sometimes, and people fall in his trap. But that same Yetzer Hara has another tachposet, another how do you say that in English?
Strategy.
Another custom, like Purim. Custom, yeah, right. He wears another uniform, the uniform of tchiyot, of pushing off something, putting off something, or rifyon, as we say in Hebrew. Rifyon means to cool you off. You were all excited. It's okay. I've done enough. All of this is also the same Yetzer Hara trying to get you, to weaken you from another angle. Therefore, all of this requires zerizut. Zerizut meaning to be diligent, to be aware that this could be atzat hayetzer. Who is giving you this advice? One of my favorite recipes for taking control of the Yetzer Hara is what the Chozeh Melubrin brings down. The Chozeh Melubrin was third generation after the Baal Shem Tov. Big tzaddik. He's called the seer, S-E-E-R of Lublin. Seer because he was able to see the Ruach HaKodesh with divine inspiration from a great distance, what's going on hundreds of miles away. Anyway, so he says, you know how you can get away with it? You know how you can deal with the Yetzer Hara easily? Anytime somebody asks you to do something, or he asks you to do something, or not do something, ask yourself before you make a decision, wait a minute, where is this advice coming from? Is it from the Yetzer Hara or the Yetzer Hara Tov? If you think about it and you evaluate it, you will never make a mistake. If you really evaluate it, you will not. The problem is people do not evaluate it. They say to themselves, oh, this sounds good, this is great, this is attractive, I'm going to go for it. But wait a minute, maybe this is coming to you from the Yetzer Hara. Maybe this is not from the Yetzer Hara Tov. It's very, very tempting. I'm going to get back at him. Wait a minute, why are you going to get back at him? Okay, I'm going to teach him a lesson. Yeah, but that's wrong. No, it's a mitzvah to teach him a lesson. Who told you it's a mitzvah? The Yetzer Hara told you it's a mitzvah. He uses mitzvah too. The Yetzer Hara believes in mitzvah. You know what he tells the women? You get up this morning, Shabbat, and you go to shul. Really? So why should I go to shul? It's a mitzvah to go to shul. Don't you know that? And what does he really want the women to do? This woman is a big talker. And whenever she comes to shul, she says, or she hears, or she continues to deal with the lashon hara of the town, the latest rumors. So the Yetzer Hara gets her out of her bed in order to instigate, to bring this about. It's a mitzvah to go to shul. Birkat HaChodesh even tells her, Rosh Chodesh. And what's his real reasoning to getting this particular woman out of her bed? For the lashon hara, for the gossip, for all the things that she's very, very strong at. Yeah, so a person really doesn't realize that the Yetzer Hara is really trying to catch him, and unless he evaluates the situation, wait a minute, why is this being told to me? Why am I thinking about this? Who is telling this to me? Where is it coming from? Most people don't think about it. They don't think about things that much. They don't evaluate. They say, well, it's probably okay. No, it may not be okay. So this Yetzer, called the Yetzer of Dechiyot, of pushing something off, is a real problematic Yetzer. You know why it's a problematic Yetzer? Because when things are pushed off, they become more difficult later to do. If it's working in a midah, the more you postpone it and you get older, the harder it becomes. One has gotten used to certain ways and certain habits, and he has pushed it off so much, later he wants to do something about it. It's much more difficult. And one of the best advice for people who really want to start working on themselves is to stay away from people who are unhelpful. I'm using a nice word. People who are unhelpful, meaning people who are doing the wrong things, killing time, playing cards, not serious about life. See, the more people associate with these kind of unhelpful people, the more difficult it becomes for them to deal with their midot, with things of a spiritual nature. Because here you're dealing with something completely opposite to what they're trying to accomplish. playing cards, drinking booze, alcohol, watching a movie. It's completely the opposite of what you're trying to achieve here, and you will see why soon, why these things tend to go contrary to the service of Hashem. I'll talk about that soon. But this will definitely not help. A person who has these kind of friends, as I spoke about it last week when we spoke about mockery, that's called a moshav letzim. A moshav letzim means assembly of mockers, of clowns, of people who are not serious about life. They tend to pull you off. They tend to drag you into their lifestyle. They tend to make you sink into a way of life which is hard to get out of. And then people say, well, I can't do this because of peer pressure. Well, why did you get involved with it to begin with? Stay away from them. There's a lot of peer pressure out there. And I don't want to get into it right now. There's so many examples of that. Too many examples of how people just cannot break away from this problem. Of what are people going to say about me? So therefore, stay away from these people. The Rambam even goes to the extreme of saying, go live in a cave and don't be around such people. Go out of town. Don't be around bad people, negative people, people who are going to take you away from your mission. All right, so I gave you a little bit of a description of this midah. But in order for us to be able to know how to go about acquiring this midah and what to stay away from that will not spoil this otherwise good midah, we have to understand a little bit more in depth. What is exactly zerizut? Where does it come from? Why some people have it and some people don't? What is it? I mean, anger, which Zat Hashem will speak about, somebody's irritated, he's unhappy. I mean, it's easier for us to understand. I think most people can understand desires. We spoke a little bit about desires, how the body craves or has needs. What is zerizut? Zerizut means a person is quick, he's diligent. What does it come from? The commentaries, the rabbis, Sifrei Musar explain as follows. Zerizut zot itlahatut pnimit. Itlahatut pnimit, perhaps we can translate as an inner aspiration or an inner drive that's coming from the inside. A drive. Now, drive means energetic. Drive means motivated. Drive means a certain degree of excitement. It's a certain burning desire to do something. Now, it could be to do something bad too. Chaz v'shalom. Zerizut can be for the wrong things. A person could be chaz v'shalom zariz for ta'avot. You just can't. I see these people sometimes. As soon as they put out a buffet, they're the first ones to grab all the food. Wait a minute. Take it easy. It's still going to be there 10 minutes from now. Nothing's going to happen. You don't have to be the first one. Yeah. But that's called zerizut for ta'avot. No, we're talking about zerizut for good things. So what is this? This is a itlahatut pnimi, means an inner desire, a drive, a burning desire to do something good. All right. When a person has this inner desire, that means he wants something. It easily comes to him because he wants it. Those who don't have it, if they apply it, if they get used to doing something in this respect, in other words, with zerizut, what they will be generating will be also an inner desire. So one more time, let me explain this very, 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 a little bit differently. One who has it naturally, this itlatut nimi, this inner desire, then he has the cheshek, he has the want, the desire to do something. One who doesn't have it, but if he applies this midah, if he does certain things, employing zerizut, what this will do for him is it will generate an inner desire. All right, let's say, give you an example. Let's say somebody doesn't like to pray. All right, let's say pray. He doesn't like to get up in the morning. It's difficult for him. He says, well, he's just lazy about it. He's not so interested in it. If he gets used to doing the right things, which I'll give you those pieces of advice at the very end. If he gets used to doing the right things in employing zerizut, he eventually, by doing those things, will come to desire to get up in the morning. It's not that he's going to be forcing himself anymore. It will actually come naturally to him because now he will want to. All right? So one who has zerizut has the inner desire almost automatically to do something, to want something, whereas one who does not have that inner desire, the drive, but by doing certain things, he will generate that drive. So that is what this is a very important midah, because if we do those right things, we can take somebody who's lazy and transform him to somebody who's zariz. Because laziness, which I think we'll be talking about next week, is the exact opposite of zerizut. The exact opposite. Pushing off, not wanting, not feeling excited about it, not motivated, nothing, zero. Terrible, one of the worst midot. Just like this is one of the best and most important, that one is one of the most destructive one. And Solomon has a lot to say about atzlut, laziness in Mishlei. So we'll talk about that separately, how terrible laziness is. And you don't, sometimes you may not even think you're lazy, but there is some laziness there. And I may not have told you this last week, I don't remember if I mentioned that. Every one of us has a little bit of everything. All the 12 astrological signs, for those of you who participated in astrology, all of the 12 astrological signs have a little bit of everything. Some have more than others, but everybody has a little bit of everything. So, atzlut, don't think you have zero atzlut, zero laziness. Sometimes we tend to want to slow down and not do things. And that is because of some degree of laziness. So, Bezat Hashem will speak about that separately. This particular midah of atzlut is a very, very destructive midah. Zerizut, therefore, is something that if a person does not work upon, does not really try to develop, he may easily fall back on atzlut. So it is important, therefore, to continuously work on it. The best way to understand the lack of zerizut in a person, the lack of it, is with the following. The human being is comprised of what? What's the main element in the human being?
Water.
He's dirt. No, you're right. He has a lot of water in it. But the human being is of dirt. You are from dirt, right? And you go back to dirt, right? Afar ata ve'afar tashuv. And the ruach goes back, the spirit goes back to Hashem. Yes, there is water, but all of that is afar. This afar, this element, this thing that we call afar, is heavy. It's slow. It's physical in nature. And because the physical body is made up of it, naturally speaking, it wants to pamper himself. It wants to enjoy and relax itself. It does not want to work hard. These three things, not working hard, enjoy yourself, pamper yourself, this is the characteristic of the physical body that's made of afar. That's it. That's naturally speaking, it doesn't want to work hard. I mean, there are people who, Baruch Hashem, have no problem working very hard. They're very devoted, hard-working people. But deep down, the body, this physical body, would rather not. Because it would rather not, you could easily find an excuse for not wanting to do something. Now, what happens, however, is that avodat haboreh, the service of Hashem, which is the mitzvot, the Torah, requires us to overcome this natural instinct of wanting to relax and take it easy and pamper yourself. And the way this avodat haboreh achieves that control is by way of the mitzvot. If you follow the Torah, you perform the mitzvot, you were able to take control over yourself, of your physical body, and not be a victim of your Yetzer Hara. Right? You will be the master and not the slave. So, avodat haboreh, therefore, is something completely opposite than what the goyim are used to. Did you ever get a call by phone? Sir, you want a trip to Hawaii. You owe yourself a vacation, don't you? What's your credit card number? What do you want my credit card number for? Oh, well, you have to pay for the hotel. they start catching you with something else. Everything in the non-Jewish world is about pleasure. It's about vacations and pleasure, cruise, whatever, Vegas, and all these. Everything is about pleasure. Retirement. What are you going to do? Ask a guy, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm going to go around the world. And what are you going to do after that? I'm going to go around the world again. I mean, what? They have no life. It's completely empty. It's all about pleasure and retire. A Jew does not retire. He retires in the grave. We always have service of Hashem. We have Shachrit Mincha Arvit till we're 120 years old. There's no such a thing as a retirement. No real retirement. You slow down a little bit, right? It's a very, very, very big difference in the lifestyle, different philosophy and outlook. We're here for a purpose. It's called Avodat Hashem. We have mitzvot. We have to accomplish something. Each one has his custom type of mission. And this goes against what the body is normally wanting. And Hashem, of course, made the body to want and to have those needs for whatever reason. We need to eat. That's the fuel in order to survive, in order to move. We need to sleep. The body needs to rest. So therefore, it's not that you can't do without these things. You can't do without these things, but you have to be very careful that they should not dominate or be the most important thing in your life. For some people, it is. Money is everything. Pleasure is everything. They have to have a 15,000 square foot home. They have to have 16 bathrooms. I don't know why. What are you going to go one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening? Every day. What do you need? They need to have a tennis court and a jacuzzi. And I just heard somebody made himself a bowling alley. In his house, yeah, a bowling alley too. All these crazy things. Now, if he's a goy, I understand him, because for him, life is all about pleasures. It's all about the goof. How can I make myself happier? And by the way, all these people are miserable. Yeah. The people that they have all these things, they're miserable. They don't have a normal life. But that's the life of a goy. Whereas the life of a Jew is more about avodat haboreh. So in order for a Jew to be able to focus properly on avodat haboreh, the service of the boreh, he needs to have this midat hazrizut. Zrizut will allow him to focus properly. I have to get this done. I can't push it off. Taxes are due by a certain date, If you push it off, you pay a penalty, right? Or interest or whatever. Yes?
In that context, Rabbi, Avodas Hashem, you met many Jews, Rabbi, who have zirzut, perhaps, like you mentioned about praying, they can't get up in the morning, so they lack that. But they don't mind going to Gemara Shir in the evening. They don't mind Mikha Ma'ariv. Right. So they have partial zirzut. They have zirzut for some aspects of Avodas Hashem, but some they're a little more lackadaisical.
Of course.
So how do you
I'm going to explain that soon. Yeah, good question. How people can have zirzut for some things and not for other. Okay, we'll soon see. Yeah. So what have we seen so far? That in order to properly perform the mitzvot, in order to stay focused, in order to be constantly motivated, this is the midah that one needs to have. Now, have you ever heard of the term chazak ve'ematz? Huh? Mm-hmm. When do we use chazak ve'ematz?
We finish the Chumash.
Finish the Chumash. Right? Yeshua is told chazak ve'ematz before he goes into Eretz Yisrael, before he fights a war. Chazak ve'ematz is used a little bit in the Torah as a way to give strength and courage to an individual, especially a leader, right before he's about to embark on a very challenging situation. To learn the Torah, to review the Torah, to continue to study the Torah requires tremendous chizukim. The rabbis tell us that there are certain things in life that require our constant attention. Things that require chizukim. One of them is Torah, the other one is prayer. Because if you don't have this chizukim, you just get used to it. Let's get this over with quickly. People rush through the prayer. They want to rush to go to work. Do you know what prayer is? If people only knew what prayer is, they'd spend hours pronouncing the words properly. This is your time to speak to Hashem. But anyway, certain things require chizukim v'mutzim. So the Torah tells us Chazak ve'ematz. Be strong, be courageous, don't be afraid, don't let your guard down. Your mission is a very important mission. And remember, you have an enemy. Enemy number one, the Yetzer Hara, who's always after you. He never retires. He never gives up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 120 years. He's always there. And that's his job. So be aware of that. Now, Zerizut really has several parts to it. The first part of Zerizut is to get something done, to get something started. Let's say you have an individual who has no problem with that. He gets something started, he begins to do something, no problem. The second part of Zerizut is where he may have a hard time. Continuity. Some people are very good at initiating things. To initiate a project, they start. They have all this energy and drive. They can't finish. You know where you see it? When they begin to read a book. They read. Either they leaf through it, or they start reading it from the back, right? From the middle, or they let go, right? There's a special nusach when you finish a masechet. You know about that Hashem should give us the merit lilmod sefarim, latchil lilmod sefarim ulesaimam, and to finish, to complete them. Not just to start it, a masechet, but to finish it. That's a big zchut, that we should have the merit to begin and to complete, not to stop in the middle. Because there is a yetzer that sometimes stops us in the middle. We were able to get away with this so far. We had all this zerizut to start something. But the second zerizut says continuity. Make sure that you're able to continue. Make sure that when you leave, you go to the restroom in the middle of a seder, of a shiur, you're able to come back and pick up from where you left. Not just say, it's tired already, I'm going to go to bed. Right? It could easily happen. You get a phone call. You're distracted. You're in the middle. Right? People have cell phones. In the shiur, they pick it up. Oh, yeah. After that conversation is finished, to get back to what they were doing, there's a new Yetzer Hara right now. You have to be very, very careful. In order to have continuity, you have to be able to pick up from where you left off. And that is tricky. So there is, again, zerizut to begin, and then there's zerizut to complete something. That could be a different challenge. That is why the rabbis tell us, En ha-mitzvah nikret ela al shem gomra. A mitzvah is never called, no one can ever take the credit for a mitzvah unless he completes the act. Not the one who started it. That's very nice of you that you started the job, the project. But you know who's going to get the credit? The one who completes it. The one who completes the mitzvah, the job, he's going to get the credit because that's the main thing. The mitzvah has to be completed. Just to start, that's very nice of you that you got it going. Nice. But who gets the real credit? The one who finishes it. Now comes the good part. Even though zerizut is a tool in the performance of the mitzvot, it's much more than a tool. Do you know what the difference is between somebody who does a mitzvah with diligence and one who does not? One who does it with diligence shows that he loves Hashem. The rabbis tell us that anybody that gets to doing mitzvot on a regular basis, he's always doing them diligently, quickly, without delay, no questions asked. It shows that he cares. It shows that he loves. You know, you do something for someone, no hesitations whatsoever. Where do we see this? Avraham Avinu. Avraham Avinu, on his most difficult challenge of all, Maaseh Akedah, to bring his son as a sacrifice, which is the most difficult challenge of all, the most difficult test. It says that morning he got up early. Vayashkem Avraham baboker. Why does the Torah tell us he got up in the morning? Because he went to sleep. Do you know anybody that would go to sleep the night before when he knows that the next day he has to sacrifice his son? He went to sleep calmly. He got up early. He saddled his own horse, right, his donkey. He did everything himself, bizrizut, because he had a love for Hashem. He had no hesitations, no questions asked. He did it right away. And he also had a Yetzer Hara. But that is where we learn zrizut, as one example in the Torah from Avraham Avinu, as an example of one who loved Hashem. And that is why he did things bizrizut. So doing something bizrizut also shows ahava. It shows that you love the mitzvah, you love Hashem, or if it's an individual you're doing something for, you obviously care for him. And that is what the rabbis tell us, Rizin makdimim lemitzvot. Rizin means people who are diligent are always first. The Brit Milah, for example, circumcision, we try to do in the morning. You can't do it at night. But we do it right away in the morning. We don't push it off. A beautiful mitzvah, an important mitzvah. Do it right away, first thing in the morning. After, of course, the prayer. You don't want to push things off till later. Zrizin magdimin mitzvot. You get an opportunity to do mitzvah. Don't say, okay, I'll do it tomorrow. You do it. If you're a zariz, you do it right away. You take care of it right away. Rabbis tell us in the Midrash, Al ken alamot ahevucha. It's a Midrash in Shir HaShirim. Alamot means young maidens, young girls. So the rabbis learn in the Midrash that from that pasuk that what Shlomo HaMelech is hinting to is that the service of Hashem has to be with almut. It has to be with zrizut. It has to be with youth, with a young spirit. People who are young are more excited, are more motivated, have more strength. So when it comes to the performance of mitzvot, do it be'almut u'bezrizut. Okay, now we've come to the point where we need to understand what will it take to acquire zrizut for those who don't have it, and what can spoil it. This is a very important part of the lecture, so pay attention. What will it take to acquire it, to strengthen it for those who don't have it, and what may spoil it? I'm going to begin with the spoilers. Why am I going to begin with the spoilers? Anybody want to guess? Why should we begin with what spoils and not something positive?
So we can walk out of here with a good feeling.
What?
So the last thing we hear when
So we can walk out with a good feeling? No, the the pasuk says, Sur mera va'aseto. You first have to eliminate the evil, then it is easier for you to do that which is positive, that which is good. You can't go down to the mikveh holding a dead animal with you. Right? Sheretz. Why? Because even if the mikveh makes you pure, if you still have a dead animal, something which is tameh in your hand, you're going to continue to be tameh. Let go of the tumah, and then the tahara of the mikveh can help. A person can want to immerse himself in all these beautiful midot, but if he has not worked on eliminating the bad midot, he may have a difficult time. He will have a big struggle. And some midot are the opposite. Laziness is the opposite of zrizut, and we'll talk about that next. Laziness. So if you don't deal with laziness head on, how are you going to do zrizut? How are you going to have zrizut? So you have to be aware of what spoils the zrizut before you actually can be active in acquiring this particular midah. So we want to know how to sur merah first, then how to aseto. So what spoils the zrizut? The greatest spoiler of all is what I began to say a little bit before about the physical body. The biggest spoiler of all is bakashat menucha. One who has a tremendous weakness in that he loves to take naps and wants to be pampered and spoiled and does not want to work hard. Anybody who values these things too much, he wants to have his 8 hours of sleep, nothing less than that. He wants to insist on having certain foods that he craves. All the pampering and all the pleasures and all the physical desires will be a big spoiler for zrizut. Because I'll give you an example. Somebody's enjoying his meal. His favorite dish is served. Lamb chops with I don't know what. I mean, really good festive meal. Or if he's in a banquet somewhere, a real great smorgasbord and a Viennese table after that. You ever hear of that, David?
Yeah, sure.
Viennese table. There's some people, who they can't miss that. It's 12 o'clock midnight. They've been at the wedding since 6 o'clock. They're not leaving. Why not? There's a Viennese table coming. You know what a Viennese table is? Yeah. David, can you maybe describe
Sweet table.
Sweet
But it's
table.
not just an ordinary sweet table. A real Viennese table is many, many assorted kind of sweets.
It's for gluttons, Rabbi.
What?
It's for gluttons.
Exactly.
And when
Yeah.
you eat that at nighttime, the next morning you're sick.
Yeah. Anyway, a sumptuous meal. A big sumptuous meal. You know, the Persians are smart.
Old people's candy.
What do the Persians do? They put you everything at the same time. They put the sweets at the table, tea, cucumbers with
Dates.
those cooker, the dates. Outside they have the kebabs. You know, yeah. They put everything out at the same time. The problem is that when you think you're done, they tell you, no, 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 this is just
Hors
hors d'oeuvres. At 11:30 at night is when the meal begins. They bring out some more food. Oh, I'm gonna have to wait for that, but you already had your food. What do you have to wait for some more, right? This is a problem. Now this is not a joke. There are some people who live to eat. They don't eat to live, they live to eat. Yeah? This is what I'm talking about. If you ever have a chance, read the chapter of Zirizut in Sefer Mesilat Yesharim. Read that chapter. He talks a lot about this. The spoilers of Zirizut. And one of those big spoilers is the pinukim, the pampering yourself, the menucha, the wanting to rest, the wanting to have a good time, an easy time, not having to work hard. These will give him a hard time. Where will they give him a hard time? So one example is waking up the next morning for Shachrit to put on time. He went to sleep late because he had to wait for the Viennese table. He went to sleep late because he had to eat more. He had to spend more time. And now, al cheshbon ma, on whose account will this be? This will be an account of the prayer in the morning. You see how this will interfere? And we want him to be zariz, we want him to wake up, we want him to go to a shiur Torah, and he won't want to let go. He's enjoying himself. But you have a shiur tonight at 8. Yeah, but I can't miss this. I want to have this, and I want to have that. So that is where this will be a big spoiler in Midat HaZrizut. When one gets used to this kind of a lifestyle, he will never be a master. Never be a master of his midot. On the contrary, he will be a slave. He will be a slave, and he will have a difficult time doing battle with this nature that he has from birth. Nature from birth meaning the raw nature that we all have. Everybody's born with a raw nature, and we either refine it or we leave it as is, raw. In other words, undeveloped, primitive. And that's a shame, because anybody who leaves it the way it is, raw and undeveloped, is in fact continuously in jail, imprisoned by his teva, by this nature, by this yetzer hara. Instead of being a master, instead of being in control. No, I'm not going to let this. I'm not crazy. Food, that's more cholesterol, poison. Who needs it? The more food I put into my body, the rabbis tell us that the more worms are going to be busy eating up my body. Right? That's what happens in the grave. The bigger the belly, the more food for the worms.
Not only that, the more you eat, the more sickness.
Sickness you get, sure. Now, but people don't think about it.
Diabetic.
Sure, yeah. Rabbis tell us, in speaking about rest and physical rest, the rabbis tell us, the pasuk says, Adam le'amal yulad. Man was born for amal, for work, to labor, not to rest, not to have a good time. What are we here for? We're not here just to have a good time. We're not here for, it's not a picnic. Adam le'amal yulad, not for menucha. So therefore, be cognizant of these ideas, what you're here for, not for the pleasures, not to satisfy your physical desires, but for the service of Hashem. Be careful, because this will otherwise spoil this midah zrizut, and you won't be able to get anywhere too fast. Another idea is not to be too afraid of little hardships. What's a little hardship? You have a headache. You have a headache. Take a Tylenol. Don't let the little hardships, the little ones, throw you off. I'll go another day. I've already gone twice this week. That's also the Yetzer Hara. Every time you perform a mitzvah, every time you go to a shiur, every time you open a sefer and you learn from it, every word you get a mitzvah for it. It accumulates, it adds up. So how could you allow a small headache to get in the way? Unless, of course, there's no zrizut. If a person is zariz, he automatically discounts the headache. It's easier for him to discount it. No, I shouldn't say automatically, it's easier for him. He says, of course I know what's more important. I know I'm not going to let this get in the way. A headache, it's 45 degrees outside, or whatever, 35 degrees outside. When we talk about laziness, Shlomo Melech makes a lot of fun of the lazy. And I'll leave it for next week. Makes fun of these people that come up with all kinds of excuses why they can't go to pray, why they can't go to a class, because it's something really silly. And that's all because a person is not zariz. So be careful with excuses, be careful with small hardships, weather and pain and the like, or conflict in the schedule, which is really not that, I'm going to miss a Super Bowl. What's more important? Yeah, well.
Fine, you can record it now.
Yeah, you can record it.
We'll listen, watch it later on.
That's right. Yeah. Anyway, rabbis tell us another way of not spoiling it is anytime you have an opportunity to do mitzvah ba'al yadcha, al tachmitzena, don't push it off. Don't push it off. Try never to push anything off. Any mitzvah that comes your way, don't push it off. You do it.
All the time, Rabbi.
No, it all depends. That's if you have a regular schedule, mincha, then that's something else. Mitzvah that comes your way, don't just push it off and have somebody else do it or not do it. If you can easily do it, if you get used to not pushing things off, this will help you with the midah of zrizut. If you push off things always, all the time, it spoils the midah. It spoils the otherwise effort that you're trying to make to acquire this midah. Rabbis also tell us, don't ever say lecheshe paneh. Al tomar lecheshe paneh. Don't say when I will have the time I will study Torah. There are some Israelis who have come to this country to make money, you know that, right? Yeah. And they say, well, first I'm going to make some money, then I'm going to get married, and then I'm going to be religious. And I'm sorry, I missed a step. First I'm going to make some money, then I'm going to get married, then I'm going to buy a house, and then I'm going to be religious. Yeah. If you push things off, by the time you want to already become religious, your head is balding, right? You have a big stomach, right? You're in a different stage in life. You're not necessarily going to go and do what you thought you were going to do earlier on. It may never happen. But that's if the guy ever gets to that stage. What about the people who die early? It happens. 35. They finished. They pack their bags, return to their soul to the Maker early on. You don't know. That is why rabbis tell us say the entire Kriyat Shema before we go to sleep, including the vidui meaning the confession. Why? Because you don't know if you're going to wake up the next morning. Is there any guarantee? There's nothing guaranteed except for death and taxes, right? Nothing is guaranteed. So since you don't know, don't take a chance. Say the entire Kriyat Shema before you go to sleep. At least you said the vidui or part of the vidui before you went to sleep. That's called zrizut. That calls being cognizant, aware, not losing track of what you're supposed to be doing. It hurts me to say it because I may be guilty of this too. But we all don't realize that the most precious commodity in life is time. Time is the most precious commodity. And the minute that was here before is gone. And if we didn't do something constructive with it, positive, how are we going to bring it back to fix it? As Solomon says, there's certain things that are beyond repair. We can't bring them back to repair. It's like they say about a car. It's a total loss. You can't bring it back. You can't save it. The time that is gone is gone. At least from now on, let me do things right. So this is unfortunately the area where most people have a very hard time with taking good advantage of the time, doing something right with it. Think about it. No, really, think about your own life right now. Have you ever sat down on a couch or a sofa and sipped on a cup of tea? We all do that. Nothing wrong with that. I mean, you need to relax a little bit. You're tired. But perhaps you overdid it. You spent more time than you were supposed to relaxing on that couch. Perhaps the other half an hour could have been spent saying Tehillim, going to visit somebody who was sick, going to attend a funeral that you heard about, going to a shiur. I mean, how that time could have been spent a lot better, but we sometimes don't realize it. Zrizut helps with that. Zrizut helps us to be aware. Wait a minute, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do next? How am I going to apply my day to maximize the time that I don't waste it. Wasting the time is what they call in this country killing time. Is a big sin. It's really something that is beyond repair. How are you going to fix that? So therefore, getting back to what we were saying, mitzvah that comes to your hand, don't push it off. Anything that comes your way is an opportunity. Don't push it off. You have an opportunity to learn now. Don't say, when I will have time. When I retire, I'll get to it. You may never retire. You know how many people I know that they said they had plans for retirement and they didn't make it. They never collected Social Security. They only went to 58. You can't collect Social Security before 62, as far as I remember. They never made it. Their pensions? Well, the pensions I think the wife took, or the second husband of the wife. You know, or somebody. Not the guy who worked so hard all his life to save. Somebody else ended up with it. Yeah, this happened, sure. A very important exercise to make sure that we complete what we're doing, something that we started, is removing any thoughts out of the way. Close your phones. Don't be bothered in the middle. Remove all thoughts. I'm not going to be bothered by something else now, because thoughts invade our mind at all times, not just our dreams. One is praying, and all of a sudden he begins to wander off and thinking about his business. And I told you once the story. The Ari, who was able to see everything, approached this big rabbi. I'm sorry, not the big rabbi was a different story. He approached the rabbi and he told him, by the way, I know you were thinking about where you left your keys at home. That was another story, but the story that I like to say is about the rabbi who approached someone and tell him Shalom Aleichem. Rabbi, I was never in any trip recently. He says, yes, you were in the middle of your Shmon Esrei. You were in Hong Kong. You know, you were thinking about your business dealings, so I had to give you Baruch Haba, Shalom Aleichem. You just came, you just arrived. Yeah. During the Shmon Esrei and Amidah, you have to be thinking about Shmon Esrei, not something else. So it's a good exercise. One has to train himself not to think about anything else when he's learning, when he's praying. And of course, if he's able to train himself like that, it's good. Otherwise, it's going to be hard for him to go back if he was interrupted. Okay, so we spoke a little bit about those things that spoil. What are the things that can help us acquire Zrizut? What can help us acquire? One who's not, by his nature, automatically Zariz. What could you do that he will help him with Zrizut? Rabbis tell us a very important exercise that can help us in many mitzvot, but especially Zrizut, is appreciate the value of the mitzvot. Do you know the value of this mitzvah? Do you really know the value of it? We don't always know the value. We don't know how much we're going to be rewarded with it. But do you know what this is? Do you know what it is to learn Torah? If one learns the value of something, then he won't easily give up on it. So that will help him with Zrizut. Knowing the true value of what he's doing. Do you know what the value of a prayer in a minyan is as opposed to praying at home? Do you know the difference between it? Day and night. So if we knew the value of something, it helps with being zariz and wanting to do it. How will I give this up? How can I give this up? Now I tell you my famous example of somebody who's learning Torah every day at 8 o'clock, and his wife tells him one day, honey, tonight you're going to the airport to pick up my mother. She's coming. And then you're going to say to yourself, wait a minute, there's something called Shalom Bayit. It's a big mitzvah to have peace at home. I got to pick up my mother-in-law.
Send the taxi.
Yes, you got to be smart. Send a limo with flowers. Yeah, be as nice as you can. And a card if you want to. I'm sorry I couldn't pick you up personally. I'll do it, right? But I have a class. And if you know how to explain this to your wife in a nice way without arguing with her, yeah, you may convince her too. You know the value of Torah, honey? You know the Torah is, I'll be a better husband because I'm learning Torah. Oh, for that, go ahead. For that, I'll let you. You gotta, if you start arguing, I'm sorry, my class is more important than your mother. No, that you can't do. So you gotta be smart. Honey, this will make me a better father and a better husband, this shiur. Yes, go every day. Go twice a day. Yeah. You gotta be smart. What can we do? Right, so this is zerizut, is being aware why and how, by valuing what you're doing. That's one thing. Number two, think about all the good that Hashem has done to you. When a person thinks about all the good, what does that automatically do to him? It creates a sense of chovah. I owe it to Hashem. I owe it to Him. He's been so kind to me. Now, what if somebody is poor or sick? Can he still think this way? Even if he's poor, he can say, well, Hashem at least has given me my life. At least He's given me a good wife and kids. You can look at things positively, even if you are in a very difficult situation. If a person is sick, at least I'm alive. There are people who are worse off than me. I always tell people, just go to the hospital and see how many people have tubes going through their body, and don't complain. Be happy with what Hashem has given you. Rabbis tell us that one of the greatest cures for all ills, complaints, one of the best ways to cry zerizut, one of the best ways to just stay on the right track and not get into trouble, is remember how temporary this world is. Just think about that. Wait a minute, what am I getting so upset and so excited about? What's the big deal? I'm leaving anyway very soon. That guy has such a big house. That guy has this beautiful car. Who needs it? 25 years from now, it's all gone. Or 30 years or 35 years. What's 25 years? Just yesterday was your bar mitzvah, right? Just yesterday. Think about it. Anybody who's over 40, guess what? You're going downhill. I'm sorry to say that. Yeah, after 40, it's downhill. Yeah, that's the way it is. And it's not that much. 30 years, 35, 38, 40. But that's it. Before you know it, so why get so excited about it? Why work so hard on all these trivialities? Therefore, how am I going to overcome this? I'm going to have bitachon in Hashem. I'm going to trust in Hashem that whatever He's given me is enough. That's what He wants me to have at this given moment, at this given time, right? Trust in Him, be mistapek b'muat, be content with the little bit that I have. Like this, I won't be jealous, I won't have tavot, I won't have sinah, hatred. This helps with a lot of midot. And it will help me with zerizut too, because it will allow me to focus on what I really need to accomplish. So this outlook, this hashkafa of that the world is the life is so temporary, is very, very helpful. We won't worry so much, we won't hesitate so much. Rabbis tell us if a person really has a problem with a mitzvah or a habit and he wants to really get into the habit of doing something, he's allowed to make a neder. It's called neder lizruze nafshe. Usually rabbis are against nedarim. Don't make a neder. Even if you keep it, you're better off not making a promise you may forget, and it's a big sin not to keep your word. So don't make a promise. There are some exceptions. One is drowning. Make a promise to Hashem because that may save your life. If you make a commitment, person has an illness that is beyond. The doctors give up hope. He has nothing to lose. Make a neder, but make sure you keep it. That's permissible, and that may save your life. Neder lizruzen nafshe means a neder to make me diligent. What's a good example? Somebody smokes. So a person turns to Hashem, I can't give up smoking. You know what? He makes a neder. For every cigarette that I smoke, $10 for tzedakah. It's going to be very expensive for him to smoke soon. He's allowed to do that. If he knows that may get him to stop, he could do that. So that's a neder lezarez nafsho. It's a nether to make himself diligent, to make himself to regain control of his yetzer that he doesn't have. That is permissible too. What is that? Then he pays $10. He makes a condition. Yeah, of course. Yeah, some sort of knai. Yeah. Rabbis tell us, "Le'olam yarutz adam ledvar mitzvah afilu b'Shabbat." On Shabbat, you're not supposed to run. You're not supposed to do exercise and overwork yourself. But if it's for dvar mitzvah, run. Yeah, run even on Shabbat. Why? Because the running is to get you zariz, is to get you used to being zariz and diligent in performing. So even if it's on Shabbat, go ahead and do that. Yeah. Just like to end with a very important point, that one of the most important undertakings in our life, in every Jew's life, is to do teshuvah. We all need to do teshuvah at some point, to repair, to make amends. This is an area that requires tremendous amount of zerizut, tremendous amounts of diligence and vigilance, to be constantly aware of our mistakes and of our misdeeds and what needs to be repaired. In order to be able to do a good job in teshuvah, obviously it requires tremendous amount of effort and study and guidance from rabbis as to how to go about it, because a person may make a big mistake when he's all excited now. Okay, I'm going to do teshuvah. I'm going to start with netilat yadayim. I'm going to start with kosher. I'm going to start with Shabbat. I'm going to put on tefillin every day. Tefillin of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. You know what that will do to a person? Tafasta merubeh, lo tafasta. Rabbis tell us, if you take too much, you will take nothing. You'll be left with nothing. Take everything a little bit at a time, or as they say in Arabic, shwaya shwaya. Right? Slowly, take it easy, one thing at a time. Be very, very quick, because the yetzer, this is coming from the yetzer too. Yetzer says, yes, you have to be a big tzaddik. You were a rasha all your life. You have to be a big tzaddik. Take everything, and you won't be able to do it. Yeah, there's a saying in Spanish and in various other languages: whoever takes too much, embraces too much, is left with very little, nothing. And that's also coming from the Yetzer. So you have to be very, very careful in embarking on the path of teshuvah to receive guidance. Okay, we've spoken about zerizut. We've spoken about what helps in acquiring zerizut and what spoils it. It's not easy. You know why it's not easy? Not because this midah is not easy, but for another reason. The rabbis tell us in Hebrew, Kol ha'atchalot kashot. How do you translate that in English?
All beginnings are hard.
All beginnings are hard. Have you ever heard that? All beginnings are hard. Yeah, all the beginnings are hard. To begin to do something is hard. Once you get going, it becomes easier. So the rabbis tell us Kol ha'atchalot kashot, and that could apply to every midah. So what are we going to do? How do we overcome the first step? So I saw a very nice explanation in the Sefer Michtav Elyahu about zerizut, and this is what he says. What is how do we see zerizut in real life? In other words, the diligence in the performance of mitzvah, other than being quick. You know where you could see it? He says like this: we all have hardships to begin to do something. So what does Hashem say? Hashem says, "Pitchu li petach shel machat, v'ani eftach lachem ki pitcho shel ulam." All I ask of you to do is open for me a small opening, like the size of the head of a needle. Very, very tiny, right? Make me a small opening, a small crack, like the head of a needle. And if you do that, I will make it wide open like the entrance to a hall. You begin it with a small head. When we begin to make a small crack, a small little opening, through that small opening, he explains, the light of Hashem can already shine through. Once it's a small opening, a small crack, the light can permeate and can, Zat Hashem, motivate the individual, the Jew, to continue Zat Hashem on his own, with Hashem's help, of course. He says this small opening, he calls it the she'ifah. She'ifah means the aspiration. Have an aspiration, have at least, at the very least, an ambition. Have at least an interest in wanting to do something nice. Even if you don't ever get around to it right away, it's a small opening. If a person does not aspire or have any ambition, how is he ever going to start? How is he ever going to do anything? So at the very, very least, at the very beginning, we should all have the right thoughts and the right feelings and the right desires of wanting to do teshuvah, wanting to get closer to Hashem, wanting to do things b'zrizut, wanting to do things right and properly, wanting to become masters of our destiny in controlling our midot. If at least we have the desire and the sheifa, then Bezrat Hashem we will receive divine assistance from Hashem as well. Amen. Thanks.